Gunda's Games!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second part of our discussion of League of Legends Season 4 changes. If you missed the first one, bam, here's a link. Today, we will be talking about Riot's changes to the Summoner's Rift map itself. Some of these are visible and tangible, while others are subtle yet pervasive. Rest assured that we shall do our best to cover all of them. We should begin, I suppose, with the most obvious things and work our way from there. Let's talk about bushes. Many areas of brush throughout the map have been tweaked, making them easier to cover or moved slightly for other reasons. The biggest change is to the top lane bushes. Rather than 2 big ones, there are now 3 smaller ones, adding more variation between top and bottom lane. This makes it more difficult to ward entirely for hidden enemies, but also significantly increases the risk of being spotted trying to set up lane ganks. Speaking of ganks, the bushes leading into the river have been moved back slightly, giving those in the lane just a little bit more warning if there's someone coming down the river. Many of the larger bushes have been cut down, especially the ones that used to curve around bins in the map. It could get frustrating to ward a bush and then still not to be able to see people in that bush simply because it was so big. This even opens up a few more non-bush warding spots, namely right behind the blue buff. Previously that wasn't really worthwhile as so much of that area was covered in brush, but now it pretty clearly reveals 3 pathways. Might be a good idea, I don't know, we'll have to test it. You may also notice in the video that the brush sways as you move through it. Rest assured that that is an almost purely aesthetic change. Only your allies can see it move as you go through it. An enemy will only see the bush move if they see you enter it, and that's all they'll see of it, unless, of course, they have a ward in there, in which case they could see you anyway. The jungle has changed significantly as well. Biggest news first, there's a new camp. Behold, the Wight. That's W-I-G-H-T, by the way. It is a camp unto itself, large and tough, with almost as much health as the ancient golem or elder lizard, and it hits even harder. If you can kill it, in addition to gold, it gives a health and mana rune, just as any other large monster in a camp. And despite being so big, it spawns at just the same time as all the other small camps, and has a similar respawn time. Because it's only one monster, it appears to be easiest to kill with single-target junglers, of course, and is such that many AoE-focused champions might choose simply to ignore it. If they want to reach level 4 in their first clear, though, they can't. Experience has been generally reduced among monsters, such that you'll have to kill all the camps, including the new one, to hit level 4. And killing both buff camps won't get you to level 3 anymore. If you want to hit that, you'll have to take another camp as well, probably the Wight. With this new camp, there will be quite a lot of speculation and theory crafting over the next few months as to what the best route is, though currently what I'm seeing is that it's generally best to clear the Wight on your first clear, and then otherwise ignore it as you continue to run back and forth in the jungle, as the other camp's spawn times end up making it a bit of a waste of time to walk all the way over to it. Oh, and before I forget, the crest of the ancient golem has been nerfed slightly. Let's be honest, blue buff has always been really strong, and with the abundance of cooldown reduction items now, it was way too easy to use it and max out all game. Thus, they've reduced its cooldown reduction to 10% instead of 20%. A big problem that junglers have traditionally had is farming, in terms of both gold and XP. Minions have always scaled better in that respect, so we've made a change. All monsters on the map now have their own levels. Rather than be based on time, these camps will now spawn with a level equal to the average of all champion levels rounded up. Their stats, gold, and XP values will be based on this level, and if a champion is lower level than the camp, say a jungler who's fallen behind and needs to catch up, they will grant bonus experience points. Now, because this isn't time-based, a new problem is presented that teams will have to solve. A monster's level is set when it spawns and doesn't change until it spawns again. Thus, if a camp is completely ignored, it will be pretty worthless later compared to other camps. So while I mentioned that junglers clearing might want to ignore the Wight sometimes, it's important that other teammates pick it up so that it doesn't become a waste later on. The dragon, like other monsters, also now has a level, so it's going to work a little differently than it used to. It initially spawns at level 6, ignoring champion levels until they catch up, and maxes out at level 15. As it scales, its gold and XP will scale as well, starting out giving less than it does now, and giving even more later in the game. Furthermore, the dragon has been turned into the objective you go for to make a comeback, in addition to giving a solid gold advantage. If the team that kills it is of a lower average level than the other team, the dragon will give bonus experience points. And for the lowest level member of the team, it will give a massive boost, an extra 15% times the number of levels they are behind the dragon squared, up to 200% extra XP. In addition to the new runes, masteries, and items, this will pretty much ensure that the support doesn't fall too far behind everyone else. Pretty awesome. Minions have levels too now, though they don't actually do anything yet. Maybe Riot wants them to scale with players too? I don't know. Whatever it is, it requires more testing, so it's nothing to worry about. What is interesting about Minions, though, is that they've removed their experience scaling. Thus, a caster minion killed at 2 minutes will be worth exactly as much as one killed 48 minutes into the game. This is to help prevent some of the crazy leveling that was occurring, particularly around champions who spend a lot of the game farming or split pushing versus those who have to actually defend objectives. In this way, a champion could come into a team fight some 3 levels over everyone else. To accommodate for this change in experience giving, the cost of leveling up has been reduced slightly. This scales dramatically over the levels, from 10 different between level 3 and 4 to over 1000 XP less to hit level 16. This, I think, will result in some faster, more dynamic laning phases, with people reaching their ultimates faster than they did last season. Also on the topic of minions, inhibitors. Destroying an inhibitor will no longer grant all the minions on your team a buff, only the ones in the lane with the destroyed inhib. To compensate though, those minions get a stronger buff than they did before. It was really a bad time to lose an inhibitor, as all your lanes would push toward you and you couldn't do anything really other than defend. Now you only have to protect the one lane especially, giving your team a little more breathing room. I personally am a big fan of this buff change, particularly for reasons of visibility. A player instinctively knows that a lane with an inhib lost is in trouble. They can see the super minions after all. But most players, especially new ones, didn't know that all minions received a buff. It was affecting their performance and they didn't even know it. Also, to give some more breathing room and put more pressure on the attacking team to capitalize on this advantage they have with a downed inhib, the death timer for inhibs has been reduced, down to 4 minutes instead of 5. Pretty nifty. Speaking of death timers, those have been tweaked for players as well to be shorter at early levels and scale back up eventually by the endgame. I'll put some of the differences up on screen here. It may look like a very, very small difference, but in the early game, every second counts. This should help prevent some early snowballing. And since we're talking about snowballing, let's talk about bounties, that is, the amount of gold kills are worth. Kills are worth significantly less early on than they were last season, down to 60% of their normal value before the 2-minute mark, and scaling slowly up to normal by the time we get to 4 minutes. This will help make level 1 team fights and anything similar less of a focal point in the game. I remember watching some of the World Championships games, and there were a lot of them decided simply because one team got 2 kills before minion spawn, and therefore had more items heading into the laning phase. I'd rather watch games where that one team fight doesn't cause the rest of the game to be a waste. Assists have been tweaked as well in favor of supports. At the 35-minute mark, assists will now be worth 80% of a value of a kill instead of 50. This is huge! And then we're also introducing assist streaks. If a player has at least 2 more assists than they have kills, additional assists will grant 30 additional gold and scale up to 60 extra gold. Pretty awesome. With all these changes, I'm really excited to see supports with actual items being able to contribute to the game more than just wards and the occasional stun. Lastly, on our bounty discussion, let's talk about proxy farming. There's nothing wrong with farming behind the enemy's tower per se. It's a little annoying, but it's a legitimate strategy. What really sucks though is when they do this, especially singed, it doesn't matter to them if they die. Eventually, they won't be worth the money to kill, but still be wreaking havoc on your base. To counteract this, Riot has changed it so that your death sprees are reduced by 1 for every 1,000 gold you earn via minions and monsters. This should help reduce the viability of a strategy that really only resulted in endless frustration. For our final bit of official news, let's talk about turrets. Firstly, their damage versus minions has been adjusted such that it should make last hitting under the tower easier. From what I can tell, they've scaled it for the most part such that you no longer need to do the weird 2-hit thing with caster minions, where you'd hit it, wait for the tower, and hit it again. You can simply kill it outright after the tower has hit it once. Melee minions seem to be the same as they were before, taking 2 tower hits before you can last hit properly. Seems like this should scale throughout the game, so you don't have to keep judging how much damage the towers will do. They've also done a little work to differentiate the levels of inner versus outer towers. The outermost turrets tend to be lane objectives, not including the whole team, whereas attacking an inhibitor turret usually takes teamwork. To reflect this, Riot has moved some of the golden experience around. For gold, instead of all turrets giving 150 gold per player, outer turrets will now grant 100 gold to all players, and 150 split among those who participated in killing it. Inner turrets grant 125 to all teammates, and 100 split. The inhibitor turrets just straight up give everyone on the team 175 gold. All in all, the amount of gold from towers from your team is exactly the same. It's just been moved around. The same with experience points, really. Outer turrets no longer give XP, and inhibitor turrets give 100 instead of 70. This fixes a few weird edge cases where a lane on the other side of the map would suddenly gain a level advantage for something they had absolutely nothing to do with. And lastly, to help just a little bit against split pushers, inhibitor turrets now have a tiny bit of health regen. Very nice. Lastly, 2 bits of unofficial news. These are not in the beta at the moment, nor have I seen official notes on them. I've seen some writers discussing the ideas though, so I'll leave them in just in case. Some were suggesting that the Baron buff be changed, so that it's more of a turret and lane pushing mechanic than an always advantage in all the team fights all the time deal. They also mentioned an earlier start time in the game, like moving the time minions spawn to, say, 1 minute or so. Both of these are exciting ideas, and I look forward to seeing if anything comes from them. And that's all I've got for map changes today. Thanks for watching. Join me next time when we talk about masteries, runes, summoner spells, and any other odds and ends I might have missed. If you've enjoyed this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. Speak up in the comments below, despite YouTube changing them, if you have your own take on the changes or some questions. We're all here to learn. Subscribe for future content, including champion guides, gameplay guides, and other possibly not LOL content. Follow me on Twitch for streams, and Twitter and Facebook to see what else is going on. Till next time, I've been Gin, and you've been watching me talk about a video game.